Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 104 of Carmela's Wrestling Radio Relived. I'm here with my baby girl, Jeannie. How you doing, honey? Jeannie?
Hi, Carm. I'm good. How are you?
Okay. I
Can you hear
didn't
me?
think you could hear me. Yeah, I can hear you now. Um,
Okay.
we have a few things we want to talk about before our guest comes on. Um, First of all, we want to talk about the Royal Rumble. What do you think about the Royal Rumble, Jeannie?
Well, I didn't watch it, but I saw, updates of who
Yeah.
won and blah 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 blah. Um, yeah, I think it was what was expected. Really, not really.
I'm not
No
surprised.
surprises or anything. I guess the big thing is who was the guy in the mask. There's a lot of conjecture
Yeah.
on who that was.
They're saying
Um,
Seth Rollins, obviously, but I
Yeah,
mean,
I
I
don't
didn't.
think so, but,
No, I don't think
um
so either. I also didn't like the fact that, as much as I love Roman Reigns, that he came in, last minute and won. Hasn't been there in a long time. I know he has illness, but I don't like the way they did that. You know what I mean? Um, I just see
well, I
that our
think it's a plan because they're saying the rumor is that since he won that, then, oh, I forget who. Is it Braun Breaker or somebody's gonna win the, Elimination Chamber, and then it'll wind up being a three-way
oh,
for the
yeah,
title at
well,
Mania.
I
So,
don't know, but
whether
I'll
that
tell you, my boy was on there. He came out first. Obafemi. Oh my God,
Oh,
I
yeah.
love him. I love him to death. Um, anyway, I see that our guest has come on. So rather than hold him back any longer, I want to give a little bit of an update before we bring him on. His name is Stuart Kemp. He wrestled as Bulldog Bob Brown Jr. We're going to talk to him about that. He is from the Washington, Canada area. If I'm not mistaken, and I know when he comes on, he'll tell me Stampede Wrestling. I'm very, very excited that they heard about us. It's crazy that our podcast is heard up that far away. So that makes me feel really good. We still want to say a few hellos before we do that because we do that every week. Debbie, of course, we have to say hello to. She tells me to tell you she loves you every week, and I forget. Um,
Love you, Debbie.
and also, we have to say hi to Dave Shapiro. That poor guy,
Yes.
God bless him. He listens to every podcast. He said to me during the week, he said, "Hey, how come you don't say hi to me?" He said, "I listen faithfully." I said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." So, Dave Shapiro, we love you to death.
Yes.
Um, Hi, and Mike Ferreira is doing good. I saw he posted
Yes.
on Facebook something about WWE is going to buy Ring of Honor,
And
AEW,
AEW.
and something else. And I said, I don't think that's happening. I don't see that happening. But anyway, also hello to David always. He's taking a little trip this weekend. I think he may have already left. I don't know, but I need to talk to you, David. Also, what else? Let me see. There's
Chuck,
Michelle. Oh, we can't forget Chuck. I was going to
can't forget
mention him
Chuck.
later. Can't
Yeah.
forget Chuck. Michelle and Michelle Journey, Michelle Stearns, and all the other people who listen to us. If you want us to call you out and say hello, just let us know. You can reach us at 316carmela@gmail.com. Okay, without any further ado, let's bring our guest on right now. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? This is my friend Jeannie and co-host. How are you?
Hi,
Well, it's
Bob. How are
sunny
you?
out
Nice
here
to meet you.
for a change. It's been cold for the last couple of weeks or so, but now it's sunny. It's supposed to be 59 degrees, which is amazing but we have no snowpack though. If you go to the mountains are struggling. I think the top of the mountains are lucky if they have like 27 inches of snow,
Get out.
where they're usually 100 inches or better. So we're kind of concerned for the summer when it happens to be the dry season, that sort of thing. We're concerned about the forest fires and stuff like that. So
Oh,
but they
yeah,
still
that's
say with Punxsutawney Phil we're supposed to have 6 more weeks of winter, so you never know. We do have some snow that shows up in February, so you never know.
well, down here in New Jersey, we have more snow than we want. Obviously, it's nothing like
Feast
you
or
guys
famine.
get.
Feast or famine.
It is, and we're supposed to get temperatures this weekend are supposed to be Antarctic temperatures. They're supposed
Yeah.
to be so cold. So
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere this weekend if I don't have to.
Yeah,
I
Um,
don't
same
blame
here.
you.
yeah, no. But let's talk about you for a minute. How did you hear about us? Because you wound up contacting me about coming onto the show.
Well, the funny thing is the American Giant had been on your podcast recently, and he and I are
Love
good
him.
friends, and he was telling me about it, and one of the things that I wanted to do in 2026 was trying to expand as many different podcasts as I go to. I mean, there's some people that want to have they want to charge for their appearances and that sort of thing. I'm going. The thing is that I like talking old school. The problem is I have what's known as verbal diarrhea. I talk endlessly, and so
Good.
because of
That's
that,
good.
people are like going, okay, would you stop talking already? And the thing is that I think that bringing more of our old school back to the forefront again is tantamount to success because I mean. In the old words, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, kind of thing. And so, like I was listening to you guys earlier talking about some of the other things, I mean, back in the day, we didn't even know about those. We sort of did, but we didn't talk about them in the manner that we do now, where we sort of go, well, if we done this, if we done this. I mean, there was fantasy wrestling and so on and so forth. But I mean, that was separate from actual wrestling. If you went to a wrestling matches, that wasn't fantasy wrestling. It is nowadays. I mean, there's all sorts of things you see in online and so on and so forth. Back in the day, it was magazines, but nowadays it's all online stuff, or they
Mm,
want to make imaginary wrestling and that sort of thing. It's just like it really is. I mean, it's grown so much in that regard. The fantasy football is big, fantasy baseball, that sort of thing, but nothing will ever beat fantasy wrestling. I mean, because I mean that's been going around for forever. I mean, probably about 40 or 50 years.
yeah, exactly. I want to say something real quick before you go on.
Yes.
Now I feel like I'm a liar because in the beginning, before you actually came on, I had misunderstood and I said, "Oh my God, our podcast reached up to Washington and Canada. Isn't that great?" And then come to find out that that's not how you heard about us.
Well, the thing is,
Although,
though, that I am in Washington, though. I am in Washington. So,
Mhm.
I mean, the podcast does go out that far. It's just, um, the thing is that as many can talk about, the opportunity to be able to expand it to a variety of different areas, people that may not have heard it before may actually now be able to know about it and hear about it. So
Yeah, perfect.
that will obviously get the ball rolling, so to speak.
Well, and also
You know,
we want to thank Buck Bresner, the American Giant, because he was a joy to have on our
Yes.
podcast. A good man, very good man.
yeah,
So I'm grateful that he talked to you about that.
yes.
I want to ask you a little bit about how you got started and what you've done in pro wrestling.
Boy, I'd say if I were to do that, it would probably take hours to go through every little thing. But the synopsis is that I was a fan back in the 70s. My claim to fame at that time was probably about 1979, where I met Gene Kiniski
Oh,
when he was
wow.
coming down the stairs at Simon Fraser University, coming down from the pool. His sons Nick and Kelly were going to Simon Fraser as students, and I remember seeing this guy. He was a giant to me. I mean, I was at that time much shorter than I am now, but I mean, looking up at this guy was monstrous. And I remember him, from the mattress commercials in British Columbia, because he would always talk about this mattress that he, great night's sleep and that sort of thing. And I'd seen him a little bit on All Star Wrestling and some of the other guys there too. And fast forward to a fan. I went to my first live match in December of '83,
Hmm.
and I went because I'd seen Stampede Wrestling. I'd seen an event that lives on in infamy. It was a six-man tag that I'd seen that turned Archie the Stopper Gouldy babyface for the first time, I think, in his career, just because he was getting ready to move to Tennessee, where he became a sheriff down there, and really accentuated Bad News Allen, who was Bad News Brown in WWE.
Okay. Yep.
And they were wrestling at that time. Sonny Two Rivers, Bret Hart, and Davey Boy Smith. At least two of those guys you'll know. The third one wrestled a lot in Montreal and so on and so forth. But and then went back to Japan as I think it was Hirihata or something like that was his Japanese wrestling name. He was wrestling over there.
Mm.
Um, but it was December '83. I went to my first live event, and that one they had a lot of the Japanese guys that were being covered for Gong Magazine over there on the show. So they had Antonio Inoki, Rusher Kimura, Hiro Saito, not Mr. Saito, but Hiro Saito, another guy, and a couple of other ones that were there. And I went to that live event and I was hooked. I mean, it's I love seeing the live events, as opposed to TV is good, but live events are far better. And I started making a monthly pilgrimage to Vancouver, which is about 45 minutes away from my house. Longer if you're taking a bus, which I was. And a couple of friends of mine and I went to the matches in Vancouver, and that went through until August of '84 when they did a double shot at the Pacific National Exhibition, um, because they were getting ready. Actually, they just sold to Stampede to WWF or WWE, and so they did two shows at the Pacific Coliseum, which is a 16,000 seat arena, and I think they drew like about 8,000 or something like that. The last two matches that they had there featured Dave Tiger Williams, who was an NHL hockey player known for his heavy pugilist matches that he had in hockey. I think he was the most penalized player. I think like 2,600 minutes or something like that. And he was a referee at one time, and then actually wrestled alongside Bruce Hart against Rotten Ron Starr and the Honky Tonk Man, or the Great Gama, pardon me. And it was a joy because we got in front row tickets. I sat there front row, watched this thing. It was just amazing. And then the rug was pulled out from me because it had been sold to the WWF. And I mean, I'd gone to some of the WWF events and AWA events that they brought into Vancouver. Number one, they weren't anywhere similar to what Stampede was. Stampede had the audience participation, that sort of thing. You really enjoyed, and so I think they came like two or three times, but they didn't draw anything in Vancouver. I mean, the numbers that they said in the Observer newsletter aren't even close to what they had there. I mean, it was dismal numbers. And so Stampede Wrestling came back in 1985, and with that they were getting ready to run Vancouver again, but this time they were going to run a smaller building. And I was looking to try and promote it because I'd seen Stampede Wrestling before. I was all excited about it, and they had a radio show in British Columbia called Sports Nightline BC, which basically covered the entire province of British Columbia. It's about the same size as California, roughly, for population or for area size. Population is probably about a tenth of people.
Mhm.
But there was supposed to be some guy that was supposed to appear on the show, and he no showed. The guys didn't show it as and nothing was going on. So the host was bad mouthing Stampede Wrestling, just burying it big time. I finally called him. I said I don't know who this guy was that you talked about. I've never heard of him. I said I can give you some numbers, and I had both the office number for Stu, and I also had the home number as well, which wasn't published in a telephone book. And I said, if you really want to talk to somebody, call these numbers and see if what you can come up with. And after a couple of weeks or so, I hadn't heard anything, so I called him back, and he was like, "Okay, fine, I'll go and make the call." He called back a week later, and he was very jubilant. He said, "Yeah, I've been able to get a hold of people. We're going to have Honky Tonk Man and Bruce Hart on the show." And he said to me, "Would you like to join?" Well, gee whiz, I'm an 18-year-old kid. I'd love to join. That would be a dream come true. So I went down. I had my big bundle of magazines with me. I mean, I went down there and we talked for about an hour at 1 o'clock in the morning on Sportsline BC. And I remember off air, Bruce Hart said, "What are your aspirations?" And I said, "Well, I don't think I'm that big." Now, granted, I was probably about the same size as what Danny Davis is,
Okay.
Ohio Valley Wrestling. But I didn't think I would be in the same realm as them to be able to wrestle. I said, "So, I'd like to be an announcer." He says, "Well, we have Waylon and that sort of thing. It does the commentary. Maybe, if we're doing some shows in BC, maybe you can do that." And I said, "Well, that'd be kind of cool." So I was at one of the shows in Vancouver, and Terry Fetter, who was nicknamed as Shadow from by a lot of the people who knew him, because he was like tailing Bruce Hart, like a shadow kind of thing. But he was always afraid of the Hart family, just petrified. I don't know why, but anyway. Um, but he said to me that their announcer wasn't able to make the show the following night in Mission, BC, after Vancouver. He said, "Would you like to go?" Sure. I'm not even 19 years old and I get a chance to do this. I mean, that's a blast.
Right.
So Little did I know that it was under nefarious means because Terry hadn't postered the town. So here we are at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, putting up posters in all this town here, so that Terry wouldn't get crapped on by the guys at by the Hart family and so forth. We still drew a decent crowd in the Legion Hall that we did there that night,
Right.
and that was my claim to fame that I actually got to announce my first show before I was 19 years old.
Cool. Very cool. So you went on to then become a wrestler at some point, or a referee too?
I
I think you
did.
did.
I announced for many years. I did Stampede Wrestling. I did the magazine business for many years. I started with Gold Belt Wrestling. I went to um, Wrestling World, and I was there for about 8.5 years on the Canadian scene. Um, and then I did some columns for Wrestling's Main Event for Sandy Krabs. And I enjoyed those immensely because it was an opportunity for those guys in our local area that weren't being covered by the American magazines to be able to get coverage in there. And so a lot of these guys were ecstatic. I mean, they actually had worldwide coverage now, which they never had before.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I can't say that it's an actual situation, but there are some, including those that worked within Stampede Wrestling, that say that Sal Mike Shaw got his job within the WCW and WWF was through the magazines. They'd actually seen the picture in there, and
Wow.
and that was from his manager. That
Mm-hmm.
one of the wrestling managers there that told me that. So I'm thrilled. I wasn't intending in doing that. I was just trying to bolster our area, get our
Yeah.
coverage.
Yeah.
But then I wrestled back in 1991. Basically, I was interested in wrestling. I had gotten a little bit of size, at that point, and they were looking for some extra talent. I mean, I'd been a manager on the shows and that sort of thing, but I needed to obviously learn how to fall and that sort of thing. So, I took some of the wrestling classes alongside of some of the other guys that were going to make their debuts in what was known as West Coast Championship Wrestling, which became ECCW later on. Um, and I did that from 1991 through when I moved down here to Vancouver, Washington. And then I continued on to about 2006. I had a sort of a comeback match in 2011, but it was just a one shot deal. It was just a one time deal. But in the meantime, I've been doing announcing basically anything that you could mention that was in wrestling, with the exception of the guy behind the camera. I did all that, both the front and the back. So
Cool. That's very cool. I have a couple of questions. We have a listener who's also a very good friend. His name is Chuck, and he sends me questions and
yep,
information every week. So he said to me, if you don't mind, I'm going to read it to you
sure.
because I'm old and I don't remember
Hey,
anything.
we're,
So
hey, we're mature.
yeah, real mature.
Mhm.
Okay, he says, blah blah blah. Have often spoken about glowing terms of
I can't answer
Cauliflower
that.
Alley Club.
Blah blah blah. I don't know what that is, but
Blah blah blah. And I'm just trying to get there. Okay, we've he says that Jeannie and I have talked about Cauliflower Alley Club,
yep.
which acts as a safety for those in wrestling industry. Okay, he wants to know, in 2021 you received the Cauliflower Alley Courage Award.
Yes.
Would you like to tell us what those circumstances were?
So in 2018, well, let's go back even further. So I attended my first CAC event in 2014.
Okay.
Um, I've been told for many years I should go. I never did because I always thought it was for the elite. I always thought it was for like the guys that had been in the WWF and WCW and so on. And I would later find out, obviously, that wasn't the case. But I went to my first event in 2014, not knowing what to do. Um, and I got there and I was amazed. I mean, my eyes were wide open, seeing all the names that I'd seen back in the day when I watched it on TV. And then I saw there was a guy that was there. His name is Bill White. He's passed on since then, but he wrestled as a Rebel in the Southeast.
Okay.
He also wrestled as I can't remember, Bill White, I think, in Portland and so on. But
Mhm.
he was running the cribbage tournament, which was named after the destroyer, Dick Meyer.
Okay.
And you know, I had played a little bit of cribbage with my grandfather, so we sort of got into that and played a little bit. And there was a wrestler named Ricky Ataki who'd been an enhancement talent for WWF for years that had played, and he had Paul Butcher Vachon and the Destroyer, and a few others that played. Not a huge amount of money made out of it, but all that money went to the CAC, and so that's how I sort of got my foot in the door. And I went there every year from there into 2017. and Bill White, who had a very bad problem flying from South Carolina to Denver. Um, it suggested to me that it was probably his last CAC. Would I mind taking over the cribbage tournament from him? So he gave me all the supplies. So I have them at home right now of all the different boards. And so one of them is actually signed by Al Percival Friend, who is a longtime CAC, has passed on as well. But I bring those boards to the CAC, and we run the cribbage tournament there. In 2018, I was getting ready, to do the CAC cribbage tournament. I'd signed up everybody, and that night I found out that we were going to be doing the wrestling show across the way at that time we're at the Gold Coast Hotel, and I was going down the escalator after the CAC, and I had a stroke on the escalator
Oh my
coming down.
God.
All I remember is seeing that everything was like all the lights and everything was all flashing. Like, it was like watching a bad B movie. And then I'm trying to figure out, okay, my legs are heavy. They're like sand. How am I going to get up this escalator? And how am I not going to fall? I still don't know how I did it, but I managed to make it 8 feet from the escalator to a chair that was just around the corner from the escalator at the casino machine. And I mean, I was beat red. I mean, I was redder than red. My friend of mine saw me, and my wife and a couple other people had seen me, and they ran to Subway to get me some ice to try and cool me down. I ended up going to the hospital. I was in the hospital for 6 hours. They released me. You don't want to be in Vegas. It's you don't want to be in the hospital in Vegas. You want to be enjoying yourself. And that's why they released me after 6 hours. That night, Papa Stro and I did the strut off at the CAC, which is like the Jackie Fargo strut off.
Yeah.
And then so I did the cribbage tournament that night. I flew home, and 8 days later, I had my second stroke. And at that
Excuse
point, I
me,
was
1 minute.
hospitalized.
Excuse me,
Yes.
Stuart. Did they know when you went to the hospital in Vegas that you had a
No,
stroke?
they said everything was perfectly normal.
Oh, wow.
They claimed that they gave me a CT scan. I'm saying BS on that. They showed me this one straight line. It's like there's no way that happened.
No, that
So
doesn't make sense.
no.
All right, I'm sorry. Go
So
ahead.
I ended up being hospitalized for 6 weeks altogether. I was in 3 different hospitals.
Oh my
The first
God.
hospital I went to right after the stroke, they tried doing surgery the following day, and I woke up about 2 hours later. Saw this guy. He looked about 90 years old, just whiter than white. And tells me, I can't go any further. I'm afraid I'm going to kill you. I'm going, whoa, that's not very good. So they stabilized me.
Wow.
And so they ended up stabilizing me enough that I could go to Kaiser Sunnyside, which is what I did. And the doctor there, really young doctor, 47 years old, said to me, he says, I think we can do this. He says, but the mortality rate is higher. And I said, well, if I live, I live. If I die, I die, kind of thing. And he's like, well, that's a pretty brazen attitude. I said, what am I supposed to think? I'm lying in a bed. I'm peeing in a box. I can't move. I can't really do anything. I'm having a nasal tube for food. What am I going to do? So anyway, they did the surgery on the 21st of May of 2018. And they came up through my groin into my brain, in the back of my brain, and knocked a blood clot out. Fortunately, it didn't go to my brain and cause an aneurysm. They left the other blood clot out, so I still have one blood clot in the left side of my brain. He said, but we got the Holy Grail. We ended up knocking the blood clot out, didn't cause an aneurysm, and we were able to shove the stent in there because the artery opened up, so we were able to do that all at one time. So I have one side of my brain that has the stent in there and that sort of thing. But then was the rehab, and very, very start, was really tough because obviously, trying to learn to walk again or swallow again. It took me a year plus to be able to actually eat again, regular food. And I still walk with a cane and that sort of thing. Although, if I'm in public, I use it. If I'm private, probably not so much because I'm familiarized with where the walls are and that sort of thing. So I can do that. But I can drive. I do some other things as well. So I'm still kicking. So here I am.
God bless you.
Yeah.
Wow. So that is in reality why you got the award?
Yeah, there was 2 of us, myself and another guy named Jim Valley, who is a radio announcer in Washington State. Also does some stuff for Figure 4. He does the online version. He and I were both the Courage Awards. He actually had kidney failure. Was on dialysis for quite a period of time, and finally they did a kidney transplant on him. So he and I actually received the awards at the same time. So I mean,
Wow.
it's a very limited award. I think it's only been given out since since 2017 because Brickhouse Brown was the first recipient, and then he and I, and there's been the latest one was Joe Goodhart,
Yep.
who had to have both his legs amputated because of diabetes and so on. But yeah, it's a very limited award. So I have it up on uh, my dining room wall there, along with my Hall of Fame award that I got from All Star Wrestling in 2016.
Yeah, God bless you. That's wonderful. I didn't know about the Hall of Fame award. That's wonderful. God bless you for that. I clearly deserve the award. You clearly deserved it.
Well,
Um,
I'm very humbled that way. I know that there's always people worse off than you, so I appreciate the accolades. I'm also one of those sorts of people that goes, if I can be there, that was one of the things when I was in the hospital at Rio for the last time. There was a gentleman, an African American gentleman, that was in the bed next to me, who'd had a stroke, a brain bleed, was on a condom catheter, and a couple other things, and I've been told by the nurses, "Oh, you can always be in the private room if you want to be." And I said, no. I said, I'm going to be here because I think this guy needs me, and
mm,
I stayed there, probably about 2.5 weeks or so with him, and there were times that we chit chat a little bit, and so on and so forth. I don't know that he gleaned anything from me, but the thing is that I wanted to be there in support for what he was going through, and if you're in a private area, then you're not going to be able to have that experience. So
right, exactly. That's wonderful. God bless you. That's amazing because there are a lot of other people would have, felt sorry for themselves and just wanted to do what was best for themselves, which is not a bad thing. But,
no,
the fact that you were willing to help other people or share with other people was amazing. Um, and I really appreciate the fact that you were willing to share that with us. You didn't have to, and I appreciate that.
the thing is, I'm an open book nowadays because I mean, the thing is that people are going to go through it. They need to know what to do. Um, people have said, well, you could write a web page on it. I said, no, no, no. If I write a web page on it, the thing is, you can turn that off. You can't turn
Exactly.
me off. I'm here. So if you
Yeah.
want to hear what I have to say, then fine. And if you don't, then you can walk away or whatever else. But
Right.
um,
Exactly.
they can at least hear what it is
Right.
that you've gone through. So unfortunately, because of that, I can't do the wrestling stuff anymore. Although I do try to give some of the experiences of old school to some of the people just so they know what it is that they're looking for. That's it. I think to me a give back that I can do.
Well, that works out well for us because we are predominantly old school as well.
Hmm.
Jeannie and I have more experience in old school wrestling. And we have a lot more knowledge. And, again, between the three of us right now, we probably have what, maybe 150 years worth of wrestling knowledge, which, you can't get anywhere,
No.
or everywhere, I should say. Okay, we have another question, Stuart.
Yep.
It says here, can you talk a little bit about your longtime friendship with the late Matt Bourne, who was Doink the Clown?
So my late wife Kathy had met Matt actually originally when he was wrestling for Sandy Barr for Championship Wrestling USA in Vancouver, um, and actually was sort of handling the book for Sandy. And unfortunately they came to a bit of a loggerheads between the two of them. Matt was more of a progressive, old school, but he was progressive in terms of what he wanted to do. Sandy was extremely old school, and they got to a bit of a loggerheads, ended up losing, the TV that they did. Um, it's unfortunate, but I got to know Matt probably about 1997. Um, Actually, well, before that, in '93, actually, I met him the first time when he had just left the WWF at that point, and he was still working as Dwight the Clown. Although they put a quote unquote cease and desist order, Matt basically threw that away, and said, "You're not going to tell me what I can do and what I can't do." But when we brought him into Canada, um, he wrestled as Maniac Matt Bourne up there,
Mm,
and he'd had a couple of guys that were training under him. Mark Watson, who has since passed away, was a referee. There was Chuck Gordy, and there was also Chad Manning and Tony Kazina, who's still wrestling today. Had wrestled in New Zealand for a while. Now he's back on the West Coast, although he does appear at shows here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Matt was he was a really interesting individual to deal with, just because of his demons. You just never knew what side you were going to get.
Mm-hmm.
There were some times, obviously you get some really bad times, but I'll give you a poignant one from him that'll tell you sort of a human side for him. Um, I had moved at that point down to Vancouver, Washington, and I was at home and I was looking through online some things, and Matt asked me what I was doing. I said, well, I'm looking at a list of wrestlers who have died before the age of 40. He says, could you print that out? And I said, sure. So I printed it out. He says, could you bring it over here with a pencil? So I did. And, probably about 5 or 10 minutes later, I'm looking over there and you can see sort of like a welling up of him. And it's very strange for him. And I looked at him and said, you all right? And he says, I worked with 90% of these guys. He says, I should have been dead before they are, you know? And it was a real eye opener for me. Um, Kathy, my late wife, had done a lot of things. I mean, Howard Finkel had called our house a few times because he was in the wellness program trying to get better, and trying to kick habit. He kicked one habit, but wasn't able to kick the other. And ultimately, I think that helped contribute to his unfortunate demise early. Um, but you know, he he had gone through. We got rid of a lot of the stuff in the household, so there weren't any temptations in the house. And my wife was making sure that there were times that Matt would be out late and that sort of thing, and she would tell him, look, if you're going to be out late and you need somebody, it doesn't matter, just call me and we'll make sure you get home safely. And that was just some of the things that we did for him. And then he ended up moving to Texas and passed away shortly thereafter. Um, but Matt was an interesting. He was very, very go-getter kind of guy. He was very, very wanting very much in this business. Um, but he was also one of those guys that saw the progression. I guess more so, he sort of had the vision. And it's so funny. We go to Stampede Wrestling, and Bruce Hart was the book up there, but he had a vision well before ECW got started. He was sort of like the hardcore. The Sheik was hardcore in terms of what he did in Detroit, but Bruce took it to a totally different level, and basically was a precursor to what ECW became. Well, Matt was along the same kind of lines. Very, very good mind in terms of being able to put things together, knowing who would work well with whoever. Um, Came to me with an idea. I mean, I refereed a show for his. He had booked a show at a casino in Idaho, and we drove out there to do the show with Matt in the car and that sort of thing, and his sister and his nieces, and we drove out there, and I ended up being the referee, sort of the heel referee on that show. So he would get his comeuppance from the babyface, at the show, and that's what happened, and boy, it went off like $1 million. I did a couple shows for Jerry Gray in one in a couple times actually at the Coast in Lincoln City, Oregon. One time against the Honky Tonk Man in Redmond, Oregon. Honky didn't like working guys like Doinks because they always wore face paint. Didn't want to get into jumpsuits, and Jerry Gray had a hood, so I could wear that. So worked Honky on the show, and Honky was like saying, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I'm like going, I said, "You've been here longer than I have. What do you want to do? I can give you some stuff, so that you can get your stuff in." And he was so happy with the things that we did, and when we came, he was at the fall, he was like, "Thanks, brother. It's fabulous." We went back and we've been friends off and on for years. So I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and Matt was the same way. I mean, Matt just he did his own drum. He was a construction guy. At the end, he worked in construction, concrete, that sort of thing, but had amassed a huge amount of friends, through work and so on. They liked his attitude. They loved his work ethic and so on. So, um, I wish that people had been able to see that side of him, because I think that they would have gotten a completely different view of what it was that Matt was to the aggressive one that you may have seen in the ring.
It's funny when you say that. When you first started talking about Matt, and you said he had his demons, and when you started talking about him, the first thing that clicked in my head was a comparison to Billy Jack Haynes for some reason.
Yeah, and
Um,
I met Billy Jack a few years ago, and boy, what a downfall he's gone through. I don't know that he had. Well, he obviously didn't have the same kind of issues that Matt did, but
exactly.
you know, yeah, it's a sad thing. A lot of these guys, unfortunately, whether it was because of stuff they did in the ring or extracurricular activities, who knows?
I think
Um,
it's a combination. I
yeah, I
think in
agree.
Billy Jack Haynes's case, anyway, I think it's a bunch of stuff because I
Yeah,
knew him back in the day. I knew him well, and he had disappeared for a while, and then
yeah,
he came back onto the scene again. And I contacted him in Facebook and stuff like that, and I was like, how you doing and how you've been and blah blah blah. We talked and talked for days, like it was days. And
yeah,
all of a sudden, he said to me out of the clear blue sky, he's like, "Do I know you?" And I said, "Well, yeah, honey." I said, "You do." And I said, we've been friends for a long time, blah blah blah. But it was back in the day. And the conversation before the conversation actually ended, he said to me, "Was I kind?" And I said to him, "Of course you were kind. You were wonderful to me. You were a very kind man." I never saw that side of Billy Jack. Okay. I never saw that side personally. I know there was a side. Obviously, we've read about it, we've heard
yeah,
about it, we've listened to other wrestlers talk about it. I personally have not ever seen that side. It's the same with a lot of wrestlers. When you are a friend of theirs, or a female in their life for some reason, yeah, it goes either one of two ways. You either see too much of that bad side,
yeah,
or you don't see any of it because they feel
exactly.
comfortable talking to you or being
Yeah,
with you.
yeah.
You know,
And that was
so
with
no,
Matt and Kathy. I mean, they did the same thing. I mean, Kathy knew about the bad side and that sort of thing, and there were a lot of times where she chastised him over the bad side,
right.
and he was legitimately afraid of her, and so rarity because with all the other ladies in his life he wasn't, but with her she was definitely he was scared of her, and so he sort of towed the straight and narrow with him, but it is what it is. Unfortunately,
Oh, wait a minute. Who are you
it's
talking about? Who was scared
with
of?
Matt.
Oh, Matt was okay. I'm sorry. I thought you
Yeah,
were talking about Billy Jack still. Yeah,
Billy Jack was an interesting. I met him at a show one time. He was brought in as a special guest, and you know, he was definitely different than I remember seeing him before. But I couldn't put my finger on it really per se. But he was just different.
hmm
He was still quiet in demeanor and that sort of thing. But just there was just something about him that seemed kind of odd.
yeah.
But I mean, that's just the thing. You don't know
Well,
until
I
until
think
something happens. You don't know.
exactly. I think in his case, from what I understand, I don't know 100% for sure. He suffered from the CTE. He suffered from brain and head injuries, and like you said, he did have his own private demons. People don't realize, they don't understand that to be a wrestler, especially in that day and age, okay, it was a very difficult struggle in a lot of ways.
Yes.
It was tough, it was not profitable at the time. It was difficult as far as being away from your family, let
Yeah.
alone the physical pain on your body. We've had wrestlers on our show that have told us over and over again that they never went to any kind of quote unquote school. They
Yeah.
learned what they learned in the ring by getting the heck beat out of them.
Yeah.
And you know, that's what people don't understand. People just, and people in general are like that,
Yes.
where they just see somebody act out, and it's like, oh, he's an ass, and he this and he that.
Yeah.
He's just, I hate him, and but you don't know what made him
No.
get there. And a
Unless
lot
you've
of
grown up
people,
with them and you've gone through every day of their life and you've been with them all the time, you really don't know. And obviously there are certain people that, when I find out later that they, had this or that or whatever else, it's like, wow, that's not the person I remember seeing. It's just like it's just
well,
but
that's like when I talked to him after, like I said, we talked and talked and talked, and he was like, talked to me very kind, like I said, like a friend.
yeah,
Never one time during our conversation, though, did he say, "Hey, Carmela, remember this or that?" And,
yeah,
we just talked, and then when he said to me, "Do I know you?" I was like, really taken aback by that, but then realized that all the mental events that he had been through, whether it was private life or in the ring, had an effect on him. And again, a lot of people don't understand that. They don't realize that these wrestlers have gone through hell and back again. And when they're in the ring, they're not allowed to show that. When they're in the
I mean, you
ring,
can't
all
show
you
injury and that
see.
sort of thing. I mean, I've been injured and that sort of thing. You can't show that. We're
No,
supposed to be quote unquote the tough guys. Um,
exactly.
but afterwards, I mean, we take a look. I mean, I'm going to mention a couple of guys. I'm sure that you can censor him if you want to. Chris Benoit and Dynamite Kid. Dynamite
No,
Kid
absolutely.
was a guy that was small in the business and got ridiculed a bunch of times. Bruce Hart brought him over from England. A small, scrawny kid. Stuart took one look at him and it's like, I can't use this kid. Bruce says, watch him, And the first match he wrestled, I think, somebody told me he wrestled Keith Hart actually on a show, and he did a fly out from the outside, inside the ring outside to like the third or fourth row, blew up both of his knees.
Wow.
And you know, but he was that intense, like his headbutts and that sort of thing were legitimate. I mean, they were connected, and he
Yeah.
taught the same thing to Chris Benoit was that style. And I am positive that Chris had some brain damage. I mean,
Oh,
I met
yeah.
him
Absolutely.
originally in 1988 at in Kelowna, and really nice guy. I mean, just super sweet guy to talk to. I met him again briefly when he was leaving Stuart's 80th bash in Calgary in 1995 with Rad Radford, and he seemed to be a little bit different at that point. And he was sort of leaning towards that, and he became more
Yeah.
intense when he went to WCW, and then even more intense when he went to WWE, and so on. I think a lot of it was at that time, and Bret Hart had the same issue with the size thing. They portrayed the Hulk Hogan's, they portrayed the Big John Studs and Andre the Giants, and all of a sudden you have a 230-pound kid that's in the ring that's supposed to be your champion. You've gone from Bob Backlund, who was, in that 220-pound, 230-pound
Yeah.
range, to Iron Sheik, who was 260, to Hulk Hogan, who's 300. It's like, how are you going to decrease that,
You
Um,
can't. You can't.
and not realistically.
No.
And so they had to do a lot of shenanigans to try and get there. Well, Bret Hart, even though he may not necessarily have been the ultimate draw per se, because the fans have been conditioned to the Psycho Sids and so on, Bret was technically a fantastic performer to watch. So was Benoit, Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero was another small kid.
Oh yeah.
All these guys, not big, but boy, they could turn on a dime, and
Yeah. Well, look
they
at Rey
provide
Mysterio
you.
still. Right. Ray's still doing it.
Yeah.
There's all the Latino wrestlers are not big,
Well,
and they
we have more allowance for that now than we did before.
yeah.
Back then, they were chastised. That's right. Nowadays, it's like we've got. Well, I mean, unfortunately for independents, we've got 110-pound twigs that are
Yeah.
they're now your heavyweight champion, which isn't believable. But that sort of thing. The idea of the business has changed to. I mean, when they called it World Wrestling Entertainment, it became everybody wanted to be entertained. Well, yes, we entertain, but we also are physical in what we do. People use words, and I hate them with a passion because you don't understand. Yeah, you may say, the F word. You may say, it's uh, whatever, predetermined or whatever else. It's like, have you ever stepped into a ring? Do you even know, what you may have to do if something goes wrong and you've got to pivot? It's not predetermined at that point. You've got to call an audible. You've got to do something to get them back to where they were.
Well,
Whatever the case may be.
I like to tell people, excuse me, I like to tell people, wrestling is definitely predetermined. I mean, they're not going to let two people go in there and literally beat the hell out of each other. But,
Unless you're tough enough.
well, unless you're really beefing with each other.
Crawl for it all,
But in my opinion, wrestling is predetermined. Yes, absolutely. Is it fake? No. Because
No.
I don't believe that, not for a second. Because like I've told people over and over and over again, I used to tell my children this when they were younger. Somebody like, let's just say as an example, Andre the Giant, okay?
Yep.
If he could make it to the top of the rope, let's say, to the top rope, and he jumped off on you. Okay. Okay, right. It's predetermined, but how do you take 400 pounds, 500 pounds, and change that weight in midair? You can't. Okay. Yeah. So if somebody like Andre, anybody, is going to fly off the top rope and land on you, you can hold yourself in as tight as you want, and tense up. It doesn't mean you're not going to feel that weight.
Oh,
I mean, absolutely.
That's where I had I had 4 ribs that were broken. I had my nose broken 3 times.
Yeah.
Several concussions that I'm aware of. I mean, it's not like Hollywood actors where it's like, okay, stop tape, stunt double, come in. We don't have that. We're on the fly.
Exactly. So. I always say that when I was a kid, I saved a wrestler from getting hit in the head with a bottle because I got hit in the head with one. And that stuff wasn't fake. Believe me when I tell you. But before we go on talking about that, I have one more question. I just want to get this over with because Chuck, God bless him, he did tell us about 2 deaths. I'm not going to lie. And I forgot. He's a great guy. He's a great guy. And I forgot who the people are that died. I'm sorry. But condolences to their families. We'll do it next week. Frankie Kane, born James Alt, who was the best known as part of the Inferno's tag team in the 60s, and the great Mephisto, I remember him in the 70s, passed away Monday morning. Oh, there you go. That's one of them. February 2nd at the age of 93.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not going to ask you a question about that. Then that was just some information that he wanted to give. He talked about the great Mephisto and Terry Gordy and let's see, Dante.
And there's another one that probably had CTE. I mean, you take a look at and between all the other demons that he went through, I met his daughter Miranda, really really nice lady to talk to, it's a sad thing, when we lose people. Death is one of those things that you don't prepare. It's unlike birth where you can prepare 9 months. I wouldn't say prepare, but you've got some time to sort of digest it. Usually a lot of the times, when you lose people, it's immediate. There's very rare times where you have prolonged whatever, and all of a sudden something happens and you lose them. That's a death to me, it can be really tough. Like I met Jerry Jarrett at CAC, and then a couple months later he's gone.
He was a good man.
That just tells you just never know.
Yeah, and time goes by so quickly.
It does.
It was funny because speaking of Jarrett, when we went out to, we brought up, I think, close to a plane full of people out to Memphis to go play ball with Jerry Lawler. We played, I think it was softball, right? Or baseball with Jerry Lawler. And we went on this talk show and everything like that. And that's the first time we met Jeff Jarrett. Okay. Now, Jeannie, I know you remember, he had this long blonde curly hair. He was so young. He was like a baby. And I was like, oh my God, this little kid's so cute, So after about, I don't know how long it was, his first time in the WWE, I was in the back and I was like, I can't believe that's him. So as soon as I saw him, I went up to him and I smacked him real hard on his chest. I went, oh my God, look at you. I thought he wasn't going to remember me. I thought he was going to be really angry at me. And he started laughing. He goes, Carmel, what are you doing here? I said, I'm always a part of the furniture. I said, I'm always around. And we started talking and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. You were just a baby. And it's like, he goes, well, I'm not a baby anymore. I said, yeah, but I'm still older than you. So that doesn't feel any better. Yeah. But it was great, but time does go by so fast. And like you said, we've talked about, people passing away before, and Jeannie and I are, especially me, very, very close to Dominic DeNucci, Bruno, and to be, it's like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, to me, they were my friends. To Jeannie, they were friends. But it's like, even if you don't know them, you know them from their ring appearances and from their history and all that. When somebody passes away, you can't help but feel that they were your friend somehow, or you can't help but feel that pain, that hurt. Like, again, bringing back Chris Benoit with what happened with him. People are very critical and they're very, what happened was horrific. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, it was horrific. I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. I didn't see it. It was horrific. But
Yeah.
again, in the same token, like you said, he suffered from brain damage. If I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong, his father allowed science to take his
Yes.
brain, okay? And they saw that there was CTE in there. He had brain damage. He had a lot going on in his head. Again, wrestling might be not fixed. It might be predetermined and it might be scheduled and it might be rehearsed, but it's not fake. You don't get CTE and you don't get brain damage because somebody's fake and somebody's like, well, I'm going to walk in the ring and pretend I'm wrestling. And like, all those falls out of the ring and all those, again, when somebody throws you over the ropes, of course there's a certain way you try and roll, you try and tuck and roll as you fall out, but you can't guarantee that that's going to happen all the time.
No,
there's times that your head goes back. And like AEW, I'm going to tell you something real quick. There was just a match a couple weeks ago where I believe it was Darby Allin went against help me with this, Jeannie. They call him the Bastard. I forget what his real name is now.
Oh, Pac or
Pac.
whatever.
Okay, Pac.
Yeah.
He gave him a suplex, okay, or backward whatever throw into the steps. Okay. His spine. His spine went down. Not went down, but actually hit all 3 steps. Okay, again, he got up, he wrestled. What's going to happen to that boy when he reaches 60 years old? What's he going to feel like?
He reaches 60 years old. I mean, that's the problem is that these guys, unfortunately, when we first started, and that's the reason why a lot of these older guys have had the long careers that they did, because they didn't do the quote unquote stupid bumps. I mean, they didn't. I mean, it's fine to entertain people, but it's also fine to be able to protect yourself in case of situations.
Right.
And these guys aren't. They're just they're reckless in many cases, in my opinion. And the end result is they may be take a look at Mick Foley, for example.
Oh God,
struggles daily, with his movements and so on. Saw him last year at CAC, and he looked ancient. I mean, 6'3", but he looked ancient. I saw him a couple years ago when he did comedy. And he didn't look as ancient. The time is definitely not favoring him. Now imagine, he did some hellacious stuff too. Dynamite did some hellacious stuff. These guys are doing hellacious stuff. And whether or not they are being told by Tony Khan to do these things, or if they do them out of their own mind, I don't know. But they're not looking for the future. They're looking for the immediate gratification.
Right. It's an instant gratification.
And the end result is that, and I'm not saying they can't do things. Okay. I'm not, you can't do that and that sort of thing. You're going to do that regardless, right? You're going to tell somebody don't drink and they still do. But I mean, think you use this upstairs, you've got that for a reason.
Yeah.
Think,
the thing is they don't think anything's going to happen to them. That's the problem. And they also want, I mean, the fans want blood, period. And that's what they go for. They want to please the fans, period. And the fans of today, because WWE doesn't do that as much as it used to.
Yeah.
The AEW is like hardcore big time now. And like they had, I told you, Jeannie, they had this one thing where Moxley brought in, it looked like a piece of a panel, like a panel block, and attached to the panel was barbed wire in this big twirl, and then there was a bag of broken glass and thumbtacks, and he brought it in. I believe he may have been going against Darby Allin too, but he wound up getting thrown on it. And as he got up, and again, you can't fake this, as he got up, you could see the blood just pouring out of his back.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I get it. I get you want the approval of the fans. I get you want to be better than WWE. I get that you want to, raise an eyebrow. I get it. I do. But at what expense? I mean, these wrestlers now have children. They have wives. They have husbands. They have, the girls are no different. There was a, what's the name in the WWE, the War Games. I mean, even then the girls were bleeding like pigs. Like they were just bleeding everywhere. In the AEW, they do that all the time. They don't realize that one of these days, God forbid, one of those cuts is going to come to an infection. That infection could go through your body like that. And they don't, they don't realize what's going to happen to them. So yeah, when somebody says to me wrestling's fake, it makes me angry because it's not. It's not. It's prearranged, it's predetermined, it's practiced, whatever you want to call it, fine. That's what it is. There's no kayfabe anymore. But I miss the days of kayfabe. I really do, because that helped a lot back then, but it's not fake. And I don't care what anybody says. So let me ask.
Never will be. And the thing is that, you may hope that you could, well, I just said, when you say we're predetermined, again, as I talked to you about that before, the word predetermined is tough to say as well, because, I mean, you can go in the back and have some ideas and that sort of thing, but when you get out there, your audience dictates where you're going to go. If they're crapping on everything that you have, then you've got to be able to pivot. I'll never forget one time there was a show that we did in New Westminster at the Eagles Hall for ECCW, and Colonel De Beers was going to wrestle a kid, Rich Koya, who was under the name of Prince Aladdin, and I remember Colonel, Prince had said a whole bunch of things to Colonel, and Colonel said, kid, listen. He says, if the crowd starts chanting boring, we take it down another notch. In other words, they're not going to dictate what it is that we are going to do.
Exactly.
We're going to dictate to them. Now, if they don't like it, then there's a reaction somewhere. They're not walking out, so they're compelled to be there. So guess what? What we're doing is the right thing. And so that's what some of these other guys are doing. They don't look at the situations. I mean, I read my audience when I go out there. I read my audience. I see what's happening. See what's going on. I mean, I wrestled a match one time in Nanaimo versus a guy named Ladies' Choice, and it looked like Shawn Michaels pretty much. Okay. And Ladies' Choice had been a heel for forever and a day, but he was supposed to be the babyface, and I'm supposed to be the heel. He says, I don't know how this is going to work. They don't like the pretty boys here. They're going to shit on me. And I said, let me go out first and let me see what I can do. So I went out first, and of course everybody's cheering the heel, and I was like, okay. So I get up to the front row and I see these three girls, probably teenage girls, and okay, there's my in right there. And I just laid on thick, and finally the thing was, I am your only choice, right? And that's when the music hits. Elsie comes out there. The crowd starts booing him, but then all of a sudden these three teenage girls are just they love him to death, right? And all of a sudden you could see that shift of the audience, just back.
Yep, they followed suit. Yep.
They hated me and they loved him. And so when he finished me off with the frog splash, we get to the back and he's like, what the hell happened? I said, that's called wrestling.
Exactly.
That's exactly how you do it. That's psychology.
Exactly.
It's like when I did a training session. I was asked to do a training session for Vancouver Island Pro Wrestling. And, I'd had the strokes, so I wasn't really totally stable. And the guy asked me to come in and do this training thing. I said, okay, fine. So I said, well, I really can't do anything special because I'm not fancy on the moves. I did all the old school stuff. So some of these guys were working shows regularly. And I said, okay, well, let's take a couple of you guys working with each other. We'll have you guys lock up, right? Just to see how it is. And so they lock up and they're like this. And so, no, why are you looking at these guys' feet? Who cares about his shoes? You should be looking at your audience to determine what it is that they're reacting to. So I ended up, taking this one guy. I said, okay, we'll go, right? So we lock up, and I'm just shaking him all over the place. I'm bringing him back and forth, and I'm going to kill you, son of a bitch, and he's freaking out and that sort of thing. And at the end, I said, did I hurt you? And he's like, no. The audience, the trainees are looking and said, did I look like I was hurting him? Yeah, that's exactly right. That's psychology, people. If you don't know how to be able to train, in that regard, to be able to get those people to react to what you do,
exactly,
you're not going anywhere.
Exactly. So, and that's the thing. That's the thing. But I wanted to talk real quick about your friend going to be on our show next week, Mr. McCurdy, Mike McCurdy. Yeah, and he said that he's definitely going to be watching tonight because you and he are good friends.
Yes.
And we're going to talk to him next week. But I was thinking, my head's just rolling a little bit
Sure.
here
Make some notes.
while we're talking. The blah
Yep.
blah blah is starting to come to fruition. I was thinking maybe we're going to talk to him next week, obviously, but I was thinking maybe somewhere down the road we could get both of you on together. How would that
Sure.
sound to you?
Well, I'll tell you, it'd be interesting to see who talks more. No, I
Hey,
talk a
that's
lot.
it's you know what? I talk a lot too, but it's better than pulling teeth.
But
Okay.
Mike is really great because he and Joe Souza ran wrestling in the Redwoods in California for a while before he moved to Texas, and they did IHWE as well out in Texas. And he's helping me actually put together a book right now for me. And I'm not doing it because I want to sell a bunch of copies because I'm a nobody, but it's just sort of like sometimes you just like to remember what it is you did before you forget it again. And because there's times where I'll go and go, oh yeah, I gotta write that down. I remember doing that, ages ago. So that's kind of thing. So Mike is working on that aspect of things. I think we're like 140 pages in right now.
Wow, that's
Um,
good. That's really
but
good. A lot of people
we,
tell me I should write a book too, but I don't
the
know.
thing is that there's always the stories, and that's the thing is that then you've got, well, what stories do we tell? What stories can I tell? Because there's certain things that need to be left alone, kind of thing. And there's other things that we're kind of they're funny and that sort of thing. And that again, now we go back to the CAC. So the CAC is doing their event, their August 23rd, pardon me, 24th through 26th in Las Vegas, the Plaza Hotel. You can go to ColorValleyClub.org to become a member there, and also you can donate there. And one of the great things is what's called the Nostalgia Room. It's the room where you go in after you get your credentials, your badge, and that's right. You can go in and see. There's usually some old school wrestlers in there. They have some announcers in there. They have old paraphernalia that memorabilia from days gone by and current,
Oh,
so you can see a little bit of everything. So that's kind of a fun thing. And there's another one that I want to mention too is in Waterloo. Now that's the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. Now it's a lot different than Las Vegas because there are no casinos, so there's no machines, there's nothing to be able to
right.
distract your attention. But what the Hall of Fame offers is the Dan Gable Museum. Dan Gable, for those who forgot, was an Olympian. Had wrestled for many years, and is now like 72 years old or something like that. But they have this museum in honor of his name in Waterloo, Iowa, which is where he was born. And the Dan Gable Museum has half of it is amateur and half of it is professional. So it actually combines the two in there at one time, which
Right.
is really phenomenal. They have an opportunity to be able to see um, history of guys that were in our business for years, and they also have guys that had wrestled amateur for years, and it's really a kind of a neat thing to see. Now they have that one from July 8 to 10, I think it is. So it's Wednesday, Thursday, or probably Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Okay.
And they have both they have like a pizza feed they do beforehand on that Thursday, and they do trivia at the hotel. Everybody usually stays at the Best Western Hotel, which is about 4 blocks away from the Hall of Fame. And what's kind of good is you go down to breakfast in the morning, and there's Jim Ross, and there's Barbara Goodish, and there's Darla Staggs,
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's all these other guys, and and all of a sudden, and it's like the CAC, you're not like up on a pedestal. You're the same level with
You're
everybody.
just a
So
friend. Yeah.
when you go there, you chit chat and there's some BS going on, some stories and so on. And that's what the Hall of Fame really does too. And CAC does that as well. I mean, when you go in the nostalgia room, it's so funny because we had one time where the Rock and Roll Express showed up for one of their things, and Robert Gibson. I was doing the cribbage tournament, and Robert Gibson asked me for a pack of cards, and he wants to do some magic tricks at the table. I mean, just doing some silly stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
just what he does. So
And it's funny, it's weird seeing a wrestler do normal human stuff, 'cause
absolutely,
you always see them in the ring and jumping and this and that when they come out and do normal human stuff like, jitterbug or stuff like that. It's like, oh, they're
One
real.
thing I do want to mention at CAC, if you're there at the Nostalgia Room, is to see Sin Bodhi who wrestles Kazarni with WWE. Sin Bodhi actually constructs these figures of wrestlers gone by, and the workmanship that this guy does is phenomenal. I mean, you swear that it had to be packaged somewhere. He does, and he's got all these guys in wrestling rings, and he likes to play games and that sort of thing, and it's so funny. And then the night before, they do something called Wrestling on the Fly, which is where they have heels on one side, babyface on the other, and they usually have guys like Fidel, Top Gun, who comes out, or Barbara Goodish, or Brian Blair, or something that's and picks one side and picks the other, and they wrestle. And so there's no real opportunity for them to sort of get their stuff in the back, figure out they come out there and they wrestle. So everything is done in the ring. So it's kind of cool. It's like at 6:00 or something like that on Sunday the 23rd at the Plaza Hotel in the same room that they do the banquet. So this is the 60th anniversary for the CAC.
Are you going to be there this year?
60 years old.
No, are you going to be there this year?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'll run the cribbage tournament there. They'll see me in the nostalgia room. So pop in, say hi.
Jeannie and I are going to try. We're going to try and get there this year. And it's funny. You said you're 60.
No, it's the 60th anniversary.
I'm sorry. Okay.
In June. God, you're just adding years to me now.
Adding years. Let me tell you something. Okay, I've been around wrestling for 62 years. Okay, yeah. I started when I was a little girl. I was only 6 years old, so I'm 68 now. And let me tell you, I could write a book, I guess. Maybe I should, but there's nothing. And a lot of times when people meet me and they, hear that they, have a podcast and blah, 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 they're like, wrestling you? And I'm like, yeah, wrestling me. Because to me personally, I was raised in it, but it's one of the best things that's ever been in my life. And
so I got involved with it was because, what I liked, I mean, I played team sports like baseball and soccer and so forth, but there was just something individualistic about the, is it a word? Well, I'll make it up. Individualistic of you being able to be something, either yourself or something of yourself or something like that, and being able to bring an audience to norms. I still have involvement in wrestling. I am at Power Pro Wrestling in Eugene, which does a YouTube card every month. They air it for free. Although you can, supply money for super chats and so on and so forth.
Right.
So if you look at youtube.com and look up for Power Pro Wrestling, there's myself, Jeremy Blanchard, and Brian Zane who cover the events there. But yet there's a ton of wrestlers that are from what's now called the Oregon Pro Wrestling School that are on the show. So they're cutting their teeth and so on and so forth. But they look really phenomenal to watch. And I encourage people to check that out. So that's one of the things I get to do. I'm doing the Portland Wrestling Expo on February 21st. Just selling a bunch of paraphernalia and so on and so forth.
Cool.
Just because I'll be at CAC, and then I'll be at the Hall of Fame first, then the CAC. So I do dabble my feet in wrestling stuff. And I encourage people to check us out, just to enjoy.
Now, Bob, are you on Facebook or Instagram?
Under my
follow
real name,
you.
They can find me, Stuart Kemp. If they want to email me, it's Bulldog Bob Brown JR1 at yahoo.com. I'd love to hear from people because it's funny is that over the last probably couple of months or so, there's been a bunch of friend requests for various things that have been connected in things, which is phenomenal because they get to see some of the stuff I did, and I get to see some of the stuff they did, and so it's really nice.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Do you have just the Stuart Kemp Facebook, so it's not under Bulldog Bob Brown?
No, I wrestled that. But so quick story on that one. So that name was bestowed upon me. I've known Bob Brown for many years, in Stampede Wrestling and so on, but it was a late wrestler named Todd Olson who wrestled as Ole Olson in Vancouver. And he remarked that many a time that he saw me, I looked like Bob Brown when he wrestled, with him in the Maritimes. So maybe I should do that. And so I ended up wrestling Ole. It was funny enough. The first match I was doing was on Vancouver Island for Nanaimo for West Coast Championship Wrestling. And I wrestled Ole Olson on that show as Bob Brown Jr. And it was so funny because you had people come up and go, "I remember your dad." I remember, you know, I guess I must have looked that familiar. I still do. I guess maybe the short hair or something like that.
Yeah.
But I've never said I was the son of Bob Brown. I always said I was the illegitimate son of Bulldog Bob Brown. And I, uh, I thought it was a tribute style for them, for making sure that the old school was kept up. Because I think a lot of people, are too interested in breaking tables and furniture and that sort of thing, and they're not looking at what used to be like your eyes closed kind of thing on the audience, and just knowing that's what you need to get for your audience.
Exactly. Well, listen, I'm going to cut you down right now for a second because we do have to close out the show.
Of course
But
you do.
I but I don't want to close it too soon, and I don't want you not to come back because I know you're like stock full of more stories, okay?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, but that's what we do. We're stories. That's what we
We're verbal
predominantly
diarrhea.
do.
We just talk and talk and talk,
That's all
and
right.
hopefully
Nothing wrong
somebody
with
will
that.
listen. Maybe.
But just remember one thing. First of all, it's been an honor to have you. Thank you
Yes.
very much.
Well, I've enjoyed talking to you guys as well.
Hopefully you'll spread the word, and maybe we will get to Canada sometime soon as far as our podcast
Well, even if you're in
goes.
Washington, because I'm in Washington State right now. I live in Vancouver, Washington right now. I lived in Vancouver, BC for 36 years.
Well, good. Tell your
Now,
friends about us so they'll listen. So we can say
absolutely.
that we're actually really in Canada. Okay.
Well,
So I don't
you
Well,
send me
want to
links. Send me
Carmela,
lots
we
of links,
are.
and I can make sure that as many people get to know you as possible, because the more the merrier. One person I'm trying to get is Bob Johnson, who is a long time ring cohort for Stampede Wrestling, um, sort of Ross Hart's right hand man. Bob was he's like what, 72 now, 73, something like that. But he has some interesting stories to tell for sure, from his days with Stampede Wrestling. So
Right.
he'd be an interesting person to talk to. I'm
Well,
trying to get
no
hold of him as
problem.
well.
Give him my number, no problem. But what I meant was, I know we're in Canada, especially right now, but I'm saying it would be nice to have an audience, like, that's from Canada as well, because that means
Yes,
a lot. It means a lot to be able to get, far away.
absolutely.
But anyway, we're going to have you back. Definitely. I'll be in touch with you to
Yes,
reschedule another time. I want to say one thing to you before we close
yes.
the show. And you've said this earlier in the show, and I say it all the time, but I realize that I'm wrong for saying it, and I don't want you to say it either. Nobody is a nobody. So don't ever say that you're a nobody, okay? Because with all that you've done and all that you've been through, and having the Courage Award, you are far. And I know you said I'm a nobody because you're not a Roman Reigns, and you're not. I know why you said it, but what I'm saying
I would
is,
say, and only in that vein. I wouldn't. I'm not saying, when I've done things is, I'd say, you may not see me in the magazines. Well, my picture is in there from Wrestling World, because I made sure that my photo was in there because I was a mark.
aren't we
In
all?
the Maple Leaf, when I was doing this stuff for Wrestling World. But I mean, there was a lot of wrestlers that got an opportunity and a rub to be able to be featured in that publication. And
Mhm.
because it was, I'm sure it was not just the States and Canada, but it went to other places as well. A lot of those other wrestlers got to be seen in a lot of those other places. And through that, I've
Mhm.
made a lot of friendships. I mean,
Yeah,
through Tony
exactly.
Condello in Winnipeg, and so on. It's been wonderful.
Well, everything you've done, you have seemed to have deserved. God bless you for
Yes.
that. And I think that it's remarkable what you've done, what you've been through. I think it's remarkable how you've pulled yourself through. I think it's remarkable that you honored us by being present on our show. I hope to God that you will have your friends let us know, give us a call. We'd love to have everybody who could possibly want to come. Ross Hart would be good too. If we could get everybody on our show, that would be great.
This is tough. He retired from teaching this last year, and so he's kind of one of those sorts of hermit guys. He doesn't do a lot of things. He's gone to a couple events, like he was at Abby's 85th birthday. He's been to the Hall of Fame. He's been to the CAC. But I mean, we don't really talk as much as we should
Hmm.
on Messenger. I mean, I'll talk to Desiree Peterson a couple times, but not Ross too much. So,
We know it's
but
funny.
that's another person we got to.
We're friends with Darla Skaggs and Barbara Goodish as well, and they're friends with Tony Garea, who
Yes.
I met, again, I knew when I was very, very, very young in school, actually. And I've asked them to ask him to come on our podcast. And they're like, he doesn't really do a lot. And I said, we found out that the last time they were there that he's doing some signings and he goes to CAC once in a while. And I said, no, that's not enough. You got to get him to come on the show.
Spending more of his time down at the Hall of Fame than he is at CAC. I mean, he and Mercy enjoy going to CAC, but for him, he really enjoys going to the Hall of Fame there in Waterloo. I think it's probably closer to home because they're in Florida. But also, I mean, it's just he gets more out of it, I think, there than he does at the others. So
yeah. Well, good. If you see him, tell him that I said, he won't remember my name probably, but I am the young girl who interviewed him when he was at the Philadelphia Arena a million years ago on professional wrestling. He has to remember that. We interviewed him and Dean Ho for school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nitaguchi, yes. Popular wrestler in Vancouver for many years for Gene.
There you go. Yep. Oh my God. Like my age is coming into my head now.
Hey, so is mine just now.
Stuart, thank you so much. And thank you, and please keep in touch.
Yeah.
Gene, you're so quiet though. Overall, though, you.
I know. Carmela yells at me all the time.
We yell at her all the time.
Yells at me all the time. I'm so engrossed in your story that I'm just like, And then when I go to say something or ask a question, Carmela jumps in and asks the question.
Well, as I said, either you feel free to email me if there's anything that we didn't cover in this, or just that you don't want to air on this, that you'd like to talk about.
For another one, another one.
I love talking. My major problem is I love talking about our business. Just and that's why I've gone to CAC Waterloo, and I went to Herb Simmons SICW for their Fan Fest, which is coming up in May. I think it's May 4th or something like that, in Fairfield Heights, Illinois. There's another guy who's been around forever. He's been around for 50 years as a promoter. Stu Hart was around for 41 years. I mean, Don Owens was around for decades. Those promoters don't exist nowadays. I mean, even though they have the names,
good promoters don't exist nowadays.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
but anyway, we're going to be in touch, okay?
Yes.
And and we'll see you again, and hopefully we'll see you at CAC.
Yes, well, send me a link, and so I can broadcast this out to everybody. Tell them to hammer it on.
Definitely. And I'll email it to you tonight.
I look forward to seeing you. I will look for you, and if I don't see you,
well, you'll get us later for that, but we're going to try.
Absolutely.
We're going to try. All right. Thank you, Stuart. God bless you. It's wonderful having you here. Have a great evening. Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody. Have a great one.
Bye.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye. Wow. What a guy. He really can talk. I love it. I love hearing his stories. I could have him 100 times.
It was just, I was just so engrossed.
It's funny because he even had me quiet there for a little bit.
Yeah.
He did. He did. Great stories. Well, we're looking forward to next week, and we're going to I want to have them both on together because I can't wait to hear what that's going to sound like, but that'll be cool.
You won't even need me on here.
Won't need me on here either. We'll just start the show and say, okay, you guys go and do what you're going to do, and we'll come back when it's over. But anyway, Jeannie, take care. This weekend's going to be frigid, so be careful.
Yes. No,
okay,
I'm in for. I ain't going nowhere. Not going nowhere.
No.
I do want to quick shout out because I was senile at the beginning of the show when we were doing the shout outs. But a very, very, very happy birthday to my Frankie the Thumper.
Frankie the Thumper.
Frank Chili. His
happy
birthday was yesterday.
Sweetheart.
And
we love you.
Happy birthday. I love you. And trying to think of, was there something else?
We're going to get him on the show one day. One day we're going to get him on the show. If I have to drag him in and pull him by his hair, we're going to get him on the show.
I know.
Yeah, if there's anything you forgot, write it down and we'll say it next week.
Got it.
Thank you again to Stuart Kemp. What a great host. What a great guest he was.
Yes.
And, we're going to have fun. That's all I want to do is have fun. So that's what we're going to do. So everybody have a good weekend. Have a good evening. Please keep in touch. Please tell your friends about us. Please subscribe and share. Have a great night, Jeannie. I love you.
I love you. Mwah.
Okay,
bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.